Good morning. Welcome to the shop. Alright, and just to recap, even though this is only part 2 of our enclosure build, out of all our past videos, we built the printer, I showed you how to program it, we built this rolling platform to get it in and out of corners, move it out away from the wall, make it easier to work on. What else did we do? We ran it on 220 instead of 110, we showed you how to do that. That way your build plates heat up in like 7-8 minutes, which is half the time it would normally take to heat up. And it runs way more efficient, drawing less amps because it's not struggling to grab all that power right from the start. So if you go back to the past videos, you'll see all of that and you can catch up to where we are now. And now we're gonna finish this enclosure and get on our first big print. And I'm talking 6 foot, at least 6 foot on our first print. It's gonna be a surprise, but I got something in store for you guys. So pull up a chair, take some notes, and here we go. All right, let's see where to begin. I got so much going on, I don't even know where to start. So I moved my wires from the back to the side for the runout sensors. I'm just gonna be using probably 2 of the plugs for now. One for a giant spool and one for regular size spools. And that's the corner where I'm gonna be moving them, because you'll see the printer's tucked in the corner like that. So let's go over whatever I need to do so I can keep it in that corner pretty much and not have to keep moving it in and out. So I got these cool handles that I printed out. Regular PLA, nothing special. And I put double-sided tape on them. So I'm gonna put these in the front corners. That way I could pull this thing in and out, because it's hard to get a grip with all the plexiglass on it. So I just measured down 16 inches from the top on each side and just gonna stick these on super easy. And again, this is per your preference. Whatever makes things easier for you, that's what you're gonna do. You know, if you're not in a corner, if you don't need to pull the printer out, don't worry about the handles. You like the handles, do it, you know? But that's it. The double-sided tape sticks extremely well to this plexiglass. And as it gets warmer in here, it's gonna stick even better. Okay, and then again, same thing, to do a handle on the side by my messy shelves. 16 inches down on the white plexiglass. That's that. Not bad, not bad. Press it on nice and tight. Alright, that looks good. See that? So now we can pull this out. And we'll go over this up here. Now our vent, our heater, well actually not our heater, but our vent has the option to vent indoors or outdoors, filtered or not. Since I have this window right behind the printer, why not utilize the external vent and vent it all outside? Screw it, right? In the winter, if it gets a little cold, I could always close it up. So what I did was I just cut a piece of clear plexi. That way you still get all your sunlight in. And I took a hole saw and I cut a 3 1/4 inch hole in the plexiglass, which is the size of the hose for the heater. I mean the vent fan. So that's gonna lock into that, and I'll still be able to open and close my window on the bottom if it gets warm in the summer. And if I want, I could always just pop this right out and close my windows up in the winter and just use the filter on the vent, you know, to run it indoors for the winter. I thought this was a pretty cool idea and a good way to use up the extra plexiglass. So that's that on that. Just measure your square in the windows a little bigger so you tuck it into your tracks. Close the window up nice and tight to it. And if you really want, you could run some clear packing tape or something around the edges, or just stick some foam in there just to keep it from, you know, knocking around on a windy day. So that's that. And then the final thing I'll show you guys before we push this back is the switch. So annoying to bend down and have to pull this out every time I want to turn this on. So if you get a switch on Amazon or wherever, just make sure it's 250 volt, at least 20 amps, and it's got to be a 4-prong. So you want 2 connectors in and 2 going out. Alright, and you're just going to pry out their switch. Take a screwdriver, pop their switch out, and you just see 2 reds and 2 black wires. 1 red and 1 black is the line, and 1 red and 1 black is the load. So whether you're at 110 or you took my idea and did 220, once you just take your tester and jump across 2 wires, whichever 2 wires show 110 or 120 or 240 or 250, those are going to be the 2 line wires. And your 2 wires that show nothing are going to be the 2 wires that go on the opposite side of your switch. And that's that. I mean, if you were able to wire up to 220 like I did, you should be able to hook up a switch. But now I could push this thing right back into place, and that's it. I don't have to pull it out unless I got to do a repair. I want to open the window. You know, I shouldn't have to pull it out, but for every so often, you know. Alright, so we got a little bit of an aerial view. So we're going to measure from the top for what we need for our top lid. I ran the Z-axis all the way up so I could see how high I need to clear. Plus I want to clear this camera too. They don't give you enough slack to come outside. And I don't want to glare on the plexiglass. I'm going to keep the camera inside for now. Hopefully the heat doesn't mess with it, but we'll see. Alright, so you want to measure side to side, first thing. And we're going to go outside of plexiglass to outside of plexiglass, not metal to metal. So here, 48 3/4 will be good. So our front and back pieces are going to be 48 3/4. And then we're going to measure back to front. And again, I want to go to the front of the plexiglass so it looks nice when the doors are shut. It'll be all even. The doors won't be sticking out. And it'll help catch any rising heat that may sneak out. So front to back here, we get 44. 44 is good. We have 44 and 48 3/4. Simple enough. So for our clearance here, you know, in order to have slack, and remember we're going to have our filament coming through from this side, since that's my easiest side to get to once this is tucked in the corner. I want to go about 6 inches up, 5.5, 6 inches. So what gives us 5.5, 6 inches? A 2x6. 2x6 is perfect for this. So I'm going to cut 4 2x6s that will sit on edge and then carry our plexiglass across over everything. It won't be in the way of nothing, and we'll still be clear on top with the plexiglass to let the light shine in through nice. So I might lower this 4-foot light bar, this LED light, down right above the glass. Alright, so let's cut our wood. Alright, now we're going to cut our wood. We got our measurements, 48 3/4 by 44. So of course we're going to have to subtract 3 inches from one of the measurements because we're going to make a box. And if we don't subtract the 3 inches, you're going to end up with too big of a box. So we'll keep a full piece in the front. We'll do 48 3/4. $48 3/4. $44 minus 3 is 41. You'll understand when I put it together why I subtracted those 3 inches. Okay. Let's make our cuts. Now you see we're going to be putting this together like a box. Like this. Like this. See? Now when we measure, we got our 48 3/4 obviously. We'll have our 44 this way. Because we subtracted the 3 inches for this to meet that. Very simple once you see it. Now the tricky part. You're wondering, why is the table saw here? I'll show you. Alright, so we're going to grab our calipers. Here's the top of our GIGA here. Here's the corner. If you notice, we have these corner brackets in the way. So if we laid our piece of wood up here, it would be all out of whack. So we're going to notch for this corner in each piece of wood. So when we sit it on here nice, it's nice and tight here. Keep a seal, and it'll raise and go over these bolts and then come back down and sit tight again, creating that seal. And then we could always fill in with some foam in the corners here. So I'm going to measure that with my calipers. Let's get these on. This is the only time we got to go to doing carpentry. We got to go back to inches. On, put it on inches. That's millimeter, inches. So what I'm going to do first is go down, measure the height of the biggest bolt, because you got 2 little bolts and 2 big bolts. So our height of our biggest bolt, we'll say, is 0.3 of an inch. We'll round it to 3. And then it's going to be that plus this, the height of the corner bracket. Blurry for some reason. Which is 0.2. So 3 and 2 is 0.5, which is half an inch. So we're going to cut ½ inch by ½ inch by 5 and a, what do we got in the back here? We'll go 5 1/4 to be safe on the back. It's hard to tell, you know, on a camera because this could be anyway. So we'll go 5 1/4, and I think the doors stick out a little more. So we'll go for the doors. We could go the same in each one, on all of them. That way you're not going nuts. Because we could just seal the corners up, you know, if they're a little big. So let's go 5 1/2. So you can see if I go on the plexiglass, that's actually tight. Plexiglass and down. We'll go 5 3/4. It's a little big, but I could always stuff a little foam or something right there. 5 3/4. Now, if you don't feel safe using the table saw or whatnot, you could just build your frame and lay it right on top of these corners and then do your foam here. But you're gonna have a hard time fastening the wood. It's gonna be just floating on these corners. So it's better to take the extra minute. You don't have to use a table saw. You can use a circular saw and do it. Table saw is just easier for me, and since I have it, I'm gonna use it. So less explaining and more showing in case you're like, what the hell are you even talking about? Well, I'm about to show you. Alright, now we're going to cut our wood. We got our measurements, 48 3/4 by 44. So of course we're going to have to subtract 3 inches from one of the measurements because we're going to make a box. And if we don't subtract the 3 inches, you're going to end up with too big of a box. So we'll keep a full piece in the front. We'll do 48 3/4. $48 3/4. $44 minus 3 is 41. You'll understand when I put it together why I subtracted those 3 inches. Okay, let's make our cuts. Now you see we're going to be putting this together like a box. Like this. Like this. See? Now when we measure, we got our 48 3/4 obviously. We'll have our 44 this way because we subtracted the 3 inches for this to meet that. Very simple once you see it. Now the tricky part. You're wondering, why is the table saw here? I'll show you. Alright, I'm going to show you why taking off that 3 inches matters. It's a lot easier when you see it. So now we're together as a square. These pieces are full length, 48 3/4. But now when you measure this way, we have our 44. Even with this piece of wood overlapping this piece of wood. So that's where your 1.5 inches comes off and your 1.5 inches comes off. So you stay with 44. If you would have left your measurements, it would have been 3 inches too big. Alright, so now, what's the table saw for? This is where we get a little bit detailed. You could use your own judgment on this, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. Alright, while our square is still together, we're going to measure for our notches. You want to do it like this, because if you try to measure from each piece of wood, you're going to be off. Because you want to go from the edge. So remember, we got 5 3/4 each corner. 5 3/4. 5 3/4. Square. Just use the square for the rest here. 5 3/4. 5 3/4. It's a little tedious, but it's gonna come out mint. 5 3/4. 5 3/4. Pull them tight. When you mark it, pull them tight together. 5 3/4. 5 3/4. Okay, that's that. Now let's set our saw to about 3/8 deep. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. It could go a little past, not a big deal. I mean, 1/2 inch we were, 1/2 inch deep. 1/2 inch, we'll go plus a hair just in case. Right there, so we're at 1/2 inch, because that was our bolt height that we have to clear. So each line that you made right now, you're going to stay to the outside and cut that 1/2 inch pocket. Very simple. 1. Make sure you're 1/2 inch from the fence and at least 1.5 inches high. Take the side with your notch, line it up, and zip them off. Alright, after you made all your notches, lay your box back out in square formation. Grab, you'll need 8 of these construction screws, which I love, with the star tip, because they will not strip on you. Phillips are a thing of the past in construction nowadays. I haven't touched a Phillip in ages. And then that's the tip you need. Torx tip. Makes life a pleasure. That's it. You know, just eyeball everything up nice. Alright, so our rough lid is built. I threw it up there to test fit it, make sure everything is good and everything fits great. The way we're going to do this, you really don't need to fasten it because it's not going anywhere. With these slots we cut out for the corners, it can't slide off forward, backwards, either way because the corners are going to catch it. Plus we're going to be capping this. Well, I'm going to be capping it in plexiglass. You guys could finish it any way you want. I'll talk more about that when we get up to covering it. These corners will be sealed. But right now we're going to take this back down so I could finish the assembly on the ground, which will make it a lot easier. And I was saying before, these wires in the back for the filament runout sensor, I'm going to pull them out and move them to the left side of the printer. Show you. I'm going to pull them out and run them on this side because I want my filament towards the right front of the printer. Since this printer is going to be tucked in that back corner over there, I want everything to be as easy as possible to get to. Why pull it in and out just to change filament? Alright, so what you're going to need for the next couple minutes, tape measure, square, maybe a tube of silicone, 3 1/4 hole saw, 4-inch hole saw, a smaller drill bit, maybe like 3/16 right here, some flathead screws to screw the plexiglass down, your lights just to test fit them. And what I did was I printed these brackets up, which are just going to double side tape to the top of the lid and hold these lights up. You're better off buying these real LEDs because those rope lights are such a pain in the butt, and for the price, put real lights, you know. Alright, then I have this I printed out of ASA. I won't explain it just yet, you'll see what that's going to be for. And then finally, this is the filtration exhaust fan kit I got from Amazon. It's pretty nice, it's magnetic. So we're going to install this into the lid. This, they give you a hose. This is what's going to go out the window. This end here, and then this end magnetically sticks to the printer, so I could just pop it on and off whether I want to use it or not. Then they give you a nice electric fan with a variable speed control, which is great. You could adjust it instead of it just being a one-time deal on or off. They give you a carbon filter with a housing, which is pretty cool. It snaps in this housing. And then once this is installed on the printer with the 4 screw heads, there's 4 magnetic points in this hose, and it just magnetizes to this. Boom. And then when you don't want to use it, we're going to pull that off. Actually, I'm going to install it this way. And then I printed this to go in here and plug the hole when you're not using it. Because even with the fan in there, it still can get air in and out from the outside temperature. So this will plug that hole if you want it plugged and you don't want it to vent. And that's that. Alright, so let's see what we're going to do first. First we're going to take our drill and we're going to get this hooked up here. Alright, we're going to take our small drill bit and we're going to go around the perimeter, maybe 4 screws in each side to hold the plexiglass onto the top. I already drilled most of them. We'll just finish off this top row here. Now go easy so you don't crack the glass. So I got 4 holes in each side. And again, to repeat this dimension for you guys, for the plexiglass, it's 44 by 48 48.5. And just remember which side is your front. This is my front. Okay, then we're going to take these panhead screws, which have a nice surface area on top. We use the tapper version of these for the sides and the doors, but we're going to use the non-tapper version for this lid, since it's just going into wood. So just straighten your lid out. Not sticking off too much on every end here. Okay. Pretty good. Just start screwing her off in the holes that you just drilled. Don't over tighten them. Okay. Alright. We'll start with this front here. So what I did was I cut a piece of plexiglass out of scrap that I had. I printed a mini version of those bigger handles that I put on the printer. This is about 9.5 by 20.5. It was just a scrap, so just grab what you got. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to drill 2 4-inch holes here with the hole saw. And this is just going to be like a vent cover. You can keep one hole open, both holes open, take it off fully, cover them. So that just adds a little extra ventilation if you don't want to use the fan. If you find it too hot, you know, you just want to break the pressure in there. You know. So I got, for these 4-inch holes, I came in 6 inches and 6 inches by 6 inches and 17. So I already drilled one hole. I'm going to drill one more hole. Okay. Just always keep it spinning fast. Don't slow down and go. You'll snap it. That's it. The lid's just gonna cover those holes. You know, you could always add a little piece of sticky rubber around them if you feel like it needs to sit better. That's it. Very simple. You can add tracks, whatever you want. You know, you could go. The sky's the limit. This is how I like it. How I think is going to be easiest for me. And they're just suggestions for you. So I'm sure there's better ways and easier ways. You know, just do whatever floats your boat, huh? Okay, so that's that. Now we'll do the fan. Bring all the parts over there. Alright, now on to the vent fan. So what we had here, I'm going to put it in this back corner here because my heat's going to be towards that front corner. That way it'll bring the heat around the whole thing. So this was a 3 1/4 hole saw, which I already cut, and the 4 3/16 holes that you'll mark out with your plate here, just like that, boom. So there's a couple ways to install this. You can put this inside, and with this down, if you just want to use your carbon filter and the fan. And then you could just run it into your garage, basement, wherever. You don't have to worry about the hose and the window and all that. You know, I'm not going to use the filter because I'm just going to use the window. So I'm just going to install this cup on the outside and the fan on the inside. And that's what I made this little ASA printout for. That'll go in there and cover this hole if I don't want to use it. And if I want to use it, my hose is going to just rest in here, boom, and go out the window. Nice and easy. So they give you 4 Phillips screws. I could even keep this all on the outside if I wanted to and just put my screws inside. I might do it like that. That way I don't got to worry about anything coming close to this inside with my Z motion. You know, I think I'm going to do it like that. So let's stand this up. It'll be easier. Okay. Oh, got my lid over there. Put this on this table here. Stand this up. Make sure you guys can see what I'm doing here. Okay. Keep you on like an angle so you can see how I'm installing this in the hole. So I'm going to put my screws from the inside out. I'm going to put my fan. Might as well keep all the electric to the back. And there's an arrow for the airflow, so make sure that's aiming up. So it goes like that. And like that. And again, you can install this on the inside with this below the fan and just use your carbon filter in there. And that's that, and then this comes threaded, which is pretty cool. From them, this is threaded. And they give you just enough length for for a plexiglass enclosure, just enough. A little bit tight. Okay, tighten our screws up snug. I got nothing hanging down inside to worry about. This looks like it's 3D printed, right? From whatever company it came from. That's pretty crazy. totally looks 3D printed to me. Come on. There we go. Okay. Even cracking like a 3D print a little bit. I want to over tighten it. Let me loosen this guy a little. That's that. This is gonna go in here like that and go out the window. And if I don't want to use it, pop this in. Don't want to use that, carbon filter. It's a very good kit. I think it was 35 bucks. For 35 bucks, with all the ways you can configure it. It's freaking awesome. Okay, that's that. We'll hook the rest of this up later. Okay. Now I want to just wipe all my edges and seams down, because I'm going to do a bead of silicone around this fan and around this inside corner. So I want to clean everything up. Okay, my inside's clean, the outside I'll vacuum. And I'm just going to do a bead around this bottom edge here. A little daylight there. So I don't get any daylight spots. That looks good. Then I'm going to go around the inside corners here. Some clear silicone. Well, of course I got a dried up chunk in there. Trying to use up an old tube here. See if I can pop this out of here. Man, I hate that. Come on, baby, come out. Doesn't want to pop out. Silicone around all the inside corners. Okay, that's that. Right here. Okay, wipe this off. Okay, and then I printed these little cradles. To hold the LED lights nice on the lid. And you'll be able to just pop them off very easily if you gotta move them. Take the lid off. This lid isn't gonna be permanently attached. It's just gonna, like I said, it's just gonna sit on there. So if you gotta take it off to do a repair or whatever, it's very simple. So I put some double-sided tape on the back of these. Just grab some equal measurements. I already marked these out. I went 12 inches in, 12 inches in, and 8 inches in from the sides. Okay. Now when it's up there, you wire up your lights. Boom. You're gonna light these things up like a Christmas tree. And these will be on their own switch. So you'll have not only your area lights for whatever room you're in, coming through the plexiglass, you'll be able to flip these on for filming, inspecting your prints. You'll be able to see them perfect. All right, I'm gonna slide this up on top of the printer, spin you guys around, and then on to the next step. Oh, one more thing before I slide this on. Aside from the fact that I decided to put some tapping screws in my side handles, I didn't trust just the double-sided tape for that. You know, I'd probably lose sleep over that. So I just put some tapping screws in those so I don't got to worry about that ripping off. But also, you see, remember we notched for our corners here, which is going to be for these plates. We're going to take some extra of our weather stripping that we use for our doors. And we're going to stick these right up over the screws here. Nicey nice. Like that. So when we put our top on, it'll squish that down in the corners. And you won't have any sealing issues in the corners. And then aside from this, we're going to be covering these corners with plexiglass also, so that's that. Just stick these on, peel off this paper here, like that. We'll cut this one back a little shorter here, like that. Turn this sideways here, and there you go. All right, now I'm gonna throw this up and bring you right back. Alright, we're looking pretty sick since I shut off the camera last. And once I get moving, I can't stop. But everything I did is pretty much, you know, you don't really need instruction for. I'll just go over it because you knew what was coming pretty much. So I threw the lid on. You saw we built the lid on the floor over here. And these are the strips of plexi white extra that I had that I cut to fit to wrap around the edges of the wood, just to give it a nice finished look. Alright, so I took the let's flip this on quick with our new switch. So I took the monitor and I just velcroed it to the side, so that way you could pop it off if you want to walk around with it or level your bed with it down there. I took a marker and I outlined it. That way when you put it back, you know the Velcro is going to catch. So I did a very fine outline with a marker. This is the internal thermostat. So it gives you the thermostat and the humidity percentage digitally. And the probe goes up and inside. And it comes right onto the wall on the inside here. We're just going to suction cup that up. Actually, we'll do that now while I show you the inside here. Here the fan's running since I have it on. So yeah, this is the probe from that thermostat, which is good. We'll be able to tell the temperature inside. We'll just stick that up there. From down here you can see we already got our lights going across the top. I ran some heat tape around where the wood meets the frame of the printer, just to give it a better seal. Since I feel like I'm not really going to have to remove this lid for anything. Looks like we can get to everything in here. Alright, so back outside. Shut our doors. Let me get a little step stool here since this thing's so monster. Here's the switch for our fan up top. I mounted it to the shelf here so when I pull the printer in and out, this doesn't move. I don't know if you can hear that. You hear it coming on. But there's our hose routed out the window. Nicey nice. So this just pops out of this pocket. And if the air is too cold or breezy coming in outside, or I don't want to use the fan, I take this little plug that I made in Tinkercad ASA and just stick it in there. Or I could just run with the window shut. See the fan? I could just run it into the garage or basement or whatever you want to call this. There we go, and that's the fan shutting off. So let's put this back in here. Like that. Alright, and then finally we got our lights up here. You can see that, two 4-foot LEDs. My switch is right here. Let's turn these bad boys on and see what we got. Wow, look at that. That's freaking sick. That's like a museum display now. Thing is lit up like a nuclear bomb. Tell me that's not awesome. See what they look like from the inside. Look at that. Woo! It'll be bright as hell in here. It'll look even cooler when I shut all the other lights off and just leave these on. Alright, so our next step is the heater and the filament. How I'm going to run the filament inside. So let's get to that. Alright, so for the heater, I was going to put that on the left side since, you know, nothing's happening over here. So I made a little shelf for it. And let me pull this out. Get this out here a little bit so I got room. Okay. So what I did, I just cut two 2x4s at 28 inches. You know, it's good to just get rid of scrap doing this stuff. That way I'm not bending down. I don't want to bend down for anything but that power button. And then I just took a piece of 3/4 ply and screwed it to the top. That's plenty strong enough for this light little heater. Alright, so this is that Aeroflux heater from Amazon. It was like 120 bucks. When you see this, it's not like you'd expect a heater to be just a box shooting heat out. This thing's pretty awesome. The heat is actually forced and it's directional. Here's the booklet. Here's the heater. Here's the hose. Move this to the side here. So this is the hose that's going to shoot into the chamber. So I can aim it, put it anywhere I want in the chamber. And it's forced heat. It's not just going to radiate out. It's going to heat this chamber fast, especially when you have your fan on the opposite corner, pulling the heat up and out of the chamber. Then this is the heater here. It's got a digital screen with power, temperature controls, and then a remote thermometer. Just like this thermometer, it's going to go inside the chamber and take the temperature. You know, a lot of people will just put a space heater in there, and then you got to babysit the freaking thing, and then you got to open your door to shut it off anyway. So this, we're just going to drill a nice little hole with a hole saw on the side, kind of low, maybe 1/4 of the way up, and then we'll shoot this into the chamber. We'll run our thermometer in, and I'll mount this somehow inside. Surprised they don't give you like a little clip or something. I might have to print something for that. So yeah, maybe I'll print a little clip to hold this. Alright, so let me get this on the shelf and get ready to drill that hole. And we'll take care of this guy here. And then we'll get our filament running in, where I can get to it, and then it'll be easy printing, no stress. Alright, our heater is installed. You can see that little black dot poking through the wall back there. That's the heat. So before I take you over to see that, just to recap, we have our powered vent out the window, and then we have our sliding vent over here that we can just move by hand, where we have our two 4-inch holes. You can just slide this over, get 1 hole, 2 holes. So that's all your venting up here. You can always keep the doors open. Got a million ways to work this printer now. And there's our heater. Beautiful. It's all digital. We got humidity. Oh, let me turn it back on. Got humidity. Temperature is 58 in there right now. This is how you set your temp. We're at 104. We go, we don't need to be that high right now. That's how you set the temperature. Very simple. Hold the power button for on and off. There's also a master switch in the back, right there, to go on and off. I use the zip tie here to hold the hose in the back, and a zip tie here to keep it from tipping in the front. Also, this door opens on the side and you could clean the filter. This is pretty quality, this heater. I really like it. So I just used the heat tape to hold this in till I could print the collar or something for that. I have the thermometer going around the back and coming in that back corner over there, if you could see that. Right back there is the thermometer. I wanted it like mid-height. So between the two thermometers, we should get a pretty good temperature reading. And then everything's going to a 20 amp outlet, which is plenty good for all this. So push this guy back over here. Push this corner back here. And there we go. Let's step back and just take a look. Take a look at that, huh? That's so nice. It's a work of art. We got a little storage under there. Now the last thing is to hang off filament. So I think I'm just going to use the filament holder it comes with and make a little rack for the giant filament roll. And they'll be external for now. I plan on enclosing the filaments also to keep the humidity out and the warm air in, and connecting that to the internal of this chamber so that warm air comes into the filament also. But we'll worry about that another time. We're going to see how it prints like this. So let me get the filament up there, and then that'll be the last step. Alright, so finally we got our filament holders up there. Pretty simple, couple shelf brackets, piece of 3/4 plywood, the Elegoo big spool holder and the small spool holder that they give you. Being that they're much higher up though, they're gonna ride a lot nicer. Couple of PTFE tubes going through the plexiglass so we don't catch any snags or cut the line. And then we're coming inside to the filament, broken filament detectors, and they're actually higher up than they would be normally on the factory setup, so they won't have as sharp of turns, coming through to the hot end as they were before. They'll have more of a nice sway. But look at that, it's pretty awesome. I'm quite happy with this. Got a heater, chamber heater, sick lighting, the doors. I'm loving it. What are you guys thinking? I gotta pick up a couple good ideas or what? Now I can finally print. I was holding off on printing until I got all this done. Finally ready, man. Gonna make a giant human clone. Definitely coming through this week. Alright, man, thanks for hanging in there. It's been fun. See you on the next one. Peace. Alright, so finally we got our filament holders up there. Pretty simple, couple shelf brackets, piece of 3/4 plywood, the Elegoo big spool holder and the small spool holder that they give you. Being that they're much higher up though, they're gonna ride a lot nicer. Couple of PTFE tubes going through the plexiglass so we don't catch any snags or cut the line. And then we're coming inside to to the filament, broken filament detectors, and they're actually higher up than they would be normally on the factory setup, so they won't have as sharp of turns, you know, coming through to the hot end as they were before. They'll have more of a nice sway. But look at that, it's pretty awesome. I'm quite happy with this. Got a heater, chamber heater, sick lighting, the doors. I'm loving it. What are you guys thinking? I gotta pick up a couple good ideas or what? Now I can finally print. I was holding off on printing until I got all this done. Finally ready, man. Gonna make a giant human clone. Definitely coming through this week. Alright, man, thanks for hanging in there. It's been fun. See you on the next one. Peace.